Beyond the horizon, the age of discovery. From the fall of Constantinople to the first steps taken on uncharted shores, the age of discovery was a period when the world's maps were rewritten faster than the ink could dry. This was an era defined by desperate captains, ambitious monarchs, and a global clash of civilizations that would forever alter the trajectory of human history. Welcome to a world where the boundaries of the possible were pushed further every single day. Today, we follow the path of those who dared to look beyond the horizon.
The economic catalyst. The spice crisis. It all began not with a thirst for adventure, but with simple economics. For centuries, Europe had relied on the Silk Road to bring in the luxuries of the East, silks from China, and most importantly, spices from India. Spices like cloves, pepper, and cinnamon were not just for flavor. They were symbols of status and essential for preserving food, often becoming more valuable than their weight in gold. But in 1453, the world changed. The Ottoman Empire captured Constantinople, the gateway between East and West. They imposed heavy taxes and often blocked Christian merchants entirely. Europe found itself in a commercial dead end. But as history shows, when one door closes, another opens. This time, that door led to the vast, unpredictable Atlantic Ocean. The Portuguese pioneer, rounding the Cape. Portugal was the first to take the gamble. Under the guidance of Prince Henry the Navigator, they began venturing further south along the coast of Africa than any European had ever dared. They developed the caravel, a small, highly maneuverable ship that could sail against the wind. In 1488, Bartholomew Dias reached the southernmost tip of Africa. Battling monstrous storms and facing a near mutiny from his terrified crew, he proved that the Atlantic and Indian Oceans were connected. He originally named the spot the Cape of Storms, but King John II, sensing that the ultimate prize was near, renamed it the Cape of Good Hope. The Great Mistake. Columbus and the New World. While the Portuguese continued their journey east, a Genoese sailor with a radical theory approached the Spanish crown. Christopher Columbus believed the Earth was much smaller than scholars claimed, and that the fastest way to the east was to sail west. In August 1492, with 3 small ships and a leap of faith, he set sail into the ocean sea. After weeks of seeing nothing but water, he finally made landfall in the Bahamas. He was convinced he had reached the outskirts of Japan or India, calling the local people Indians. Though he died believing he had found a new route to Asia, his mistake would ignite an unprecedented race for land, gold, and power in a new world that Europe hadn't even known existed. The Prize of the East. Vasco da Gama's triumph. Portugal, however, was not to be outdone. In 1498, Vasco da Gama successfully navigated around the Cape of Good Hope and across the Indian Ocean to reach the shores of Calicut, India. The journey was grueling. Of the 170 men who started the voyage, only 54 survived. But the cargo he brought back was worth 60 times the cost of the entire expedition. For the first time, Europe had direct access to the treasures of the East, bypassing the middlemen of the Silk Road. The global center of gravity began to shift away from the Mediterranean and toward the Atlantic powers. The ultimate test. Magellan's circumnavigation. But the most daring feat of navigation was yet to come. Ferdinand Magellan, a Portuguese explorer sailing for Spain, set out in 1519 to achieve what many thought was a suicide mission: to find a westward passage to the Spice Islands and circumnavigate the globe. His fleet of 5 ships faced unimaginable hardships: bitter cold in the South Atlantic, mutiny and starvation so severe the men were forced to eat sawdust and leather from the ship's rigging. Magellan himself would not survive the trip, falling in a skirmish in the Philippines. However, in 1522, a single battered ship, the Victoria, returned to Spain with only 18 men left. The mission was complete. The Earth was undeniably proven to be a sphere, and the vast scale of the Pacific Ocean was finally revealed.
This new knowledge, however, came at a staggering and often tragic cost. The arrival of the conquistadors brought the swift and violent collapse of ancient American civilizations. In 1521, Hernán Cortés captured the Aztec capital of Tenochtitlan, and a decade later, Francisco Pizarro toppled the Inca Empire in Peru. While gold and silver flooded back to Europe, fueling a new global economy, the indigenous populations were decimated. It wasn't just the sword that killed them. It was the invisible cargo the Europeans brought with them. Diseases like smallpox and measles, for which the locals had no immunity, wiped out up to 90% of the population in some areas. A global legacy. The Columbian Exchange. As the white spots on the maps began to vanish, a new global reality emerged. This era gave birth to the Columbian Exchange, a massive transfer of plants, animals, and ideas. Europe received potatoes, tomatoes, and corn, which would eventually end many of the continent's famines. In return, the Americas received horses, cattle, and wheat. But this exchange also established the brutal transatlantic slave trade, as millions of Africans were forcibly moved to work the new plantations in the West. The shifting horizon. The age of discovery turned the world into a single, interconnected web. It was a time of brilliant human achievement and dark exploitation. The world became smaller, tighter, and irrevocably linked. We are still living in the shadow of the choices made by those captains over 5 centuries ago. Thank you for watching this journey through our global past. If you found this story of exploration and change fascinating, let me know in the comments which explorer's story resonates with you the most. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into history. Until next time, keep looking beyond the horizon.